Stop. 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 Had enough? Kick out mucus and quiet the cough with Mucinex 12-Hour DM for long-lasting cough and chest congestion relief. Buy Mucinex 12-Hour DM at your local retailer. Use as directed.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the Dastardly Desk Clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Hi friends, and welcome back to The Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today I have the pleasure of having guests on my podcast. I got to interview Dr. Jeremy Ayers and John Gusty, who have a fantastic book out, The Red Pill Revolution, and as we're going to talk about health, everything. And this is something that you will not want to miss if you care about your health, you want to talk about vaccinations. We dive into the weeds. So, John Gusty was in the entertainment industry for over 30 years, working behind the curtain for some of music's biggest names. And then he turned his attention to health and wellness in an effort to help his wife heal from what was originally diagnosed as multiple sclerosis. He soon realized that the same deceit and profit motive that plagued the entertainment media was even worse inside the medical industrial complex. Imagine that. So as a devout agorist and champion of individuality, he now devotes his time to producing content that celebrates the spirit of sovereignty in all aspects of life. Dr. Jeremy Ayers, co-author of The Red Pill Revolution, passionately uncovers deception in the medical industrial complex and its links to the pharma and food industries, holding titles like Senior Practitioner of Physical Medicine and Naturopractic Consultant. He merges chiropractic, osteopathy, and naturopathy. Trained as a UK osteopath, Jeremy, an international natural health educator, guides numerous individuals towards natural healing. His mission involves blending Eastern wisdom with Western science, challenging medical manipulation, and advocating for holistic well-being to create a healthier world. So I am so excited that you guys get to hear this conversation, this interview. And as always, everything that we talk about in our interview will be linked in the show notes, the link to their book, the other podcasts that they've done, everything. You can find all that in the show notes. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this one.
It's back to school season, football season, and life gets stressful again season. Which begs the question, isn't it time you had an edible to relax? IndaCloud has finally done it. They've captured the flavors of childhood in their Soda Shop series Delta 9 Gummy. Get those strawberry, grape, and fruit punch flavors while you also get high as... IndaCloud has all your favorite dispensary-grade cannabis products shipped right to your door discreetly across all 50 states. Between their Beast Mode vapes, their exotic flower choices, specialty-flavored wraps, and their pre-rolls and concentrates, IndaCloud are the experts at getting your cannabis to you and getting you very, very high. And you can find it all at indacloud.co. Head to indacloud.co/fall24 and get discreet delivery on top-shelf THC products for 30% off on your first order. That's indaclow.co/fall24 to snag 30% off your first order.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the Dastardly Desk Clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Dr. Jeremy, John, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you guys here.
Thank you, Danielle. We appreciate definitely looking forward to this conversation.
This is going to be so good. So let's kind of start with your book. Can we just start there?
Yeah. So I'll give you my take on it, and then Jeremy can give you his. Five of us. I'm the lone American out of the bunch. The other four are blokes from the UK, and it was pre-2020, fourth quarter of 2019. We had I guess it would help to explain. Jeremy is my wife's doctor. My wife has been confined to an electric scooter for the last 15 plus years. Originally diagnosed as MS. That's a whole other topic in and of itself. Maybe we can get into that later. But Jeremy and I, through that connection, Jeremy and I got very, very close. We quickly realized we are both rabid hole dwellers, and there were very few rabbit holes.
Critical thinkers.
Yeah, there are very few rabbit holes we hadn't already gone down, and I think everyone listening can relate to the fact that these days, far too many people have to pick their conversations and the people that they have conversations with, because there are a lot of people out there who are afraid of mouth sounds and scary words and get offended and triggered and can't have adult conversations anymore. And so it was very refreshing to find someone that you could talk to these strange and wonderful subjects about without getting one's panties in a wad. And so we just struck up a wonderful friendship, and the idea came about, I think we were talking off mic before the show about, we humans tend to wake up and realize, have these, aha moments. Oh my gosh, my doctor might be lying to me, or these politicians might be lying to me, or my religion might be lying to me, or the food that I'm eating is poison. They wake up at various times and in various areas of life. And when one does kind of wake up and realize, oh, things aren't exactly as I've been told that they have been, it's exciting. People freak out and go overboard, and everything's a lie, and but it's a time when you certainly could use some friends.
That's when they find my podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's I think we all remember when, I don't know when your aha moment was, but mine was certainly I don't know. It was a combination of Sandy Hook and 9/11, but those two events together, you on the other side of that, there's like, eyes are just wide open, and you start looking around at other things. But anyways, the book was intended as a field guide for people who are in that moment of life, and just kind of a sane, kind, humble friend, if you will. That book was intended to be, to just go, hey, look, we don't have all the answers, but here's what we know at the moment, and it's an easy read, and there's lots of memes. And anyways, so that book, we put the book out in the middle of the scamdemic, and it did very, very well. Created a bunch of other wonderful relationships, which turned into what Jeremy and I are doing right now, which is Naturally Better. And I guess I can just sum that up with, there's always been a lot of sick people, because pop culture and the pop culture diet and the pop culture habits that we've all grown up under and influenced by have created a lot of sick people. But the events of 2020 really accelerated that, and there are just a lot of sick, hurting, lost, confused people, and that's just turned into a life's work. And so that's what we're doing now, and a lot of that work is just having conversations like this one. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to continue these conversations in front of another audience, and I just hope that the people, there's at least a small handful of people on the other side of this conversation that, have further questions, or maybe they've heard things that they haven't heard before, or maybe they've heard things that they felt before but didn't want to speak up about. So that's for me, that's what it's all about. I love the art of conversation. I want to keep the art of conversation alive, and I love sharing knowledge.
And obviously for you, like your wife was sick, and so you guys started looking for like something else, right? Like regular Western medicine just wasn't doing it for you.
It wasn't even that. It was I just never had any I was blessed. I've just been pretty healthy my entire life, so I never really interfaced with the medical industrial complex until I met my wife. And when you fall in love with somebody, their issues become your issues, and so her issues became my issues. And my wife is a wonderful, wonderful woman of many talents, but one of her talents is not the art of asking questions. She is a car salesman's wet dream. She'll just, if you tell her something, she's actually gotten a lot better because of she has to be married to me, but
Jokes on her.
she wasn't asking any questions. And I was sitting in these doctor's appointments with her, and I just saw how blatantly these people in white lab coats with letters after their names would just tell people, here, take this or do this, or you have this. And I think we've just all been conditioned that those people have special knowledge that nobody else has. And when someone with a white lab coat tells you that you have something, or that you have to take something, that's the God's truth, and that there's no other options there. And so I just started asking questions, because that's my nature. And I came from a lifetime of the entertainment industry. I've been, for better for worse, I've worked with some of the biggest names in music, and I understand ego. I definitely understand ego. I've sat in the room with it for most of my life. I also understand marketing and writing out narratives and marketing plans and trying to get people to do something. I understand marketing is just manipulation. It's just another way to say manipulation. And so I just never saw ego like I saw it in the medical industrial complex realm. And I also didn't. It's one thing when you're marketing to people to get them to, buy a guitar or buy concert tickets or a t-shirt or whatever. But when you're marketing and manipulating people into making decisions that could potentially kill them, and a lot of cases do, I was just a whole other level of douchebaggery that I had never experienced until that time. And so I got pretty passionate about that, and quickly realized that, and I'll just make this analogy and then toss it over to Jeremy, because I'm being long-winded about this, and I apologize. But I think we all know that the fast food industry does not have our best interest in mind. They are not there to nourish us. They are not there to feed our bodies, so to speak.
No way.
So we know that, right? I mean, that makes sense. I quickly started looking at the medical industrial complex the same way that I look at I think the medical industrial complex is to health and wellness what the fast food industry is to nutrition. And just like I don't have to go to McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell for my nourishment. There are other options. What are those other options, John? Well, I don't know. You seek them out and you go, I am hungry and I like meat. Where do I get clean meat? And it takes effort. You got to go find that clean meat. You could just go through the drive-through at Burger King and get a burger, but that's going to be toxic, gross, not healthy for you meat. And so like I said, I just started looking at the medical industry the same way I looked at the fast food industry. And as time went on, those parallels just keep getting closer and closer and closer. And so it's just like it does take effort, but it's not that hard to find healthy nutrition alternatives to the fast food industry. It's not that hard to find healthy alternatives to the medical industrial complex.
It sounds harder than it is, I think. Like the idea of it is hard, right? So
sorry.
It's
just changing your way of thinking.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Jeremy, you've been doing natural medicine for 30 years, right?
Yeah. Actually, the last podcast I did, it was the no bullshit MDs. I really liked him, actually. he introduced me as the Yoda of natural doctors, and I like
I
that.
love that.
Yeah. I've been doing it a long time, and I like to think I've come a long way, and I'm certainly been very successful at helping
So
people.
why did
Yeah.
you choose like this path versus like
Well,
normal doctor path, I guess?
yeah.
I hate to
No,
even say it like
I'm
that.
really glad you asked that question, because I was going to go there anyway, because even though your audience is probably preaching to the choir, you know, we never presume that there isn't going to be some fresh ears out there that are triggered by a lot of things we say. But so I always like to start with, you know, John's probably the same, but he's a bit more rock and roll and punky, you know. But I came from a basic English working class Christian family, at least Christian in the sense there was a picture of Jesus on the wall. We didn't go to church because that was boring, but you know, we were good, decent people, hardworking, you know, believed what the television said, believed what the government said, you know, good people. But my mother, you know, raised me to be against liars and bullies. So that was the fundamental sort of upbringing I had. And little did I know that I was going to find out that the world was run by liars and bullies, because we didn't believe that growing up, of course. And
Right.
so while what I want people to know is we didn't set out to pick every possible controversial subject that the most people think the opposite to, and decide to not only speak about the opposite, usually complete opposite, but also publicly to speak about it, because we were convinced that somehow that's going to win us friends, influence our career, and make us a lot of money. Because as you all know by your laughter, it's apart from the time that we're in now, which is very exciting, but in the past, certainly 15, 20, 30 years, you know, it is a very, very challenging, particularly professional path to walk. I mean, I've been cancelled so many times, and lost the ability to transact online. And that should give anybody that is a cynic at least a prompt to think, well, why would they do that? You know, but anyway, you know, I was raised, you know, to not, or to, you know, push back against liars and bullies. And when I was 12 years old, cancer first time came into our family circle. My brother's wife's mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was 12 years old. It's the first time I saw all this upset, and got fighter jets going over. I don't know if you can hear that on the microphone, but anyway, it's the first time I saw this disease come into the family circle, and the fear and the anger and the upset, and my brother's wife's mother went on to pass. And of course, you're told she died of breast cancer. I have a different view now. I would strongly suggest the treatment probably hastened and took her life from her. But nonetheless, I saw how much anger and grief and pain and confusion and everything that's negative. And at 12 years old, you know, although, you know, arguably you're starting to become a teen, you know, knocking on a door of, you know, young manhood and things, I was very innocently thought, this has got to be fixed. This is just wrong. And so that kind of went very deep. And then, you know, I went back off into my normal life. I was a national champion in canoeing and training to be in the Olympic training squad in canoeing. And I got into the junior squad of Olympic, represented Great Britain. And I worked for a family building business. And, you know, that kind of was out of my life until 22 years old. And it was the year I was best chance to go into Olympic Games. I hurt my back really badly. Now, for whatever reason, and I think a lot of people are like this actually, I've never liked doctors, surgeries, or hospitals. They repel me.
Yeah.
And actually the same for churches. And I know why now, but if ever I went into a church, it was repellent to me. And I don't mean necessarily the people. I've met some really, really wonderful people in all different religions, but these churches, at least in England, I found frightening, if anything. But there was an energy that I didn't like, that I couldn't explain. at that age. But nonetheless, 22, I hurt my back really badly, didn't want to go to a doctor. And on the squad, there was attached an osteopath, which is similar to a chiropractor, if you don't know. And I didn't know what an osteopath was. And he looked more like a traditional English butcher that you'd see in some period drama of the 60s or 70s. He was portly, red-cheeked, and wore a long white coat. But anyway, I went off to see him because he wasn't charging very much, because we were in this Olympic training squad. And I walked into this factory-like clinic where it was lots of curtains and lots of couches and lots of students basically doing most of the work. And Ron Johnson, who was the chap, would then come in and do manipulations and adjustments on you at the end. And he handed me over to this Eastern European woman who had more facial stubble than me, and certainly more hair on her legs and bigger muscles. And she proceeded to ask me to undress. No explanation. So I'm down to my boxers on a couch and being massaged to agony. I was in tears. Now, I'm English, so we don't complain. We write a letter the next day, carefully crafted, and that's how we complain. But anyway, after about half an hour, in comes Ron Johnson, puts me in what I thought was some pseudo-sexual position, again, no explanation, and adjusts me, and there's this massive crack. So if anyone's ever been adjusted or watched chiropractic, there's massive crack.
Mm-hmm.
Again, no explanation, and this part shock and part revelation. The pain basically vanishes. And that was it. I was like, I have to do this. It was there and then. This was a miracle for me. This is amazing. And here I am, set up to be a family builder. I trained as a carpenter and joiner, but I just wouldn't leave me alone. And it's at that point, this is a very condensed version of the story, by the way, but it was at that point I realized that I had no option, but I had to follow this path. And I managed to get myself on the best course in England, of which after a year I was bored out of my brains and very, very upset that I was bored. And I happened to be sitting next to this very odd chap that I didn't particularly like. He was very rough around the edges, but one day he turned around to me and also said, "This is crap, isn't it?" And I went, "Oh my God, somebody else. It's not just me." Yes. Anyway, another long story short, his father was trained by a great man called Harry Hawes up north near the Scottish borders. And off we went. You're probably too young to know of Hammer House of Horror movies that were produced in England in the sort of 60s and 70s, but always on foggy moors with old, ghostly kind of buildings. And that's exactly what we went to on a moor. It was a Catholic priest training college with lots of huge paintings of bishops and frightened choir boys. Again, I now know why the choir boys look so frightened. But I met Harry. And Harry was 76, and he wouldn't accept any of these words. He was a true genius and a true master of osteopathy, classical osteopathy. And he very quickly saw in me that, quote unquote, he said to me, "You've got it." And I kind of felt I did, this gift, but he saw it in me, which is intimidating at the time, but he took me under his wing, and he was my first mentor. And very, very quickly, it was pre-internet, pre all those things, he explained to me that there is no interest in the actual governmental systems and anyone they're funding to heal diseases. And he had tried along the arthritis, rheumatoid, all the things that perhaps classical osteopaths would have been involved in. And he was often showed the door, even though he'd had huge success. So I was very, very early on primed that the system is not, and the higher you go, the more less interest, or the less interested it is in how good you may or may not be, or what knowledge. And that was a big shock, because I've come from a family and a upbringing that believed the world was honest, or basically honest, And so from there, the wanting to heal cancer when I was 12 years old started to bubble up in me again, and with passion. And I was fortunate enough to find my second mentor, Barbara Wren, when I'd finished my osteopathic training, who was arguably and is arguably one of the greatest naturopaths ever to live. And fortunately, she also saw something in me, and she became my next mentor. And she taught me, like no one else had ever done, how to see what dis-ease, which is where the word actually comes from, not at ease, out of, how to see what causes and how it progresses in the body, what dis-ease was, and how to start to undo that. And from that, it started me on a lifelong, and I'm nearly finished for any audience that's reaching for the kettle. It started me on a lifelong, literally, you can't stop researching. And the more you research, the more isolated you become, even from your own profession. Because the truth is, the closer you get to understanding why man gets sick and how to heal them, the more threatening you become to people's profit margins. And so you become either more and more isolated, attacked, or, you know, written off as a quack, or you know, all these names. But that's why I started this, Danielle, with we didn't wake up one day and go, hey, let's pick the reason we're here talking of how controversially we will talk is based on morals and moral fiber, that we don't like bullies and we don't like liars, and we love truth and we love helping our fellow man. And that's led me to knowledge that has helped me heal, well, thousands and thousands, not every time, of course. There's some people it's just too difficult, too complex, or too late, but thousands and thousands of people, from many of them, have been written off. And it's a beautiful thing, Danielle.
Are you guys concerned? This is going to sound like a weird question. Are you concerned that somebody might kill you? Like,
no,
right? Like, you guys keep speaking out and like challenging.
I want to answer that seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm asking, it's like a serious question too. Like,
yes, I want to answer that seriously before John grabs it and then talks for the rest of the show. I'm just joking. I spent most of my professional life, day in, day out, fearing that. My father feared it. My loved ones feared it. And many of the people I learned from died in prison, or their name ruined, or worse. Even in recent years, some great and eminent doctors and scientists and citizens, researchers, similar problems have bestowed upon them, their lives ruined. However, I started with a Christian upbringing, and although I am allergic to religion, I have a very strong faith in the Creator. I do not know what God or the Creator or whatever it is, but I do believe there's an intelligence at play, and I do believe we are actually fighting good and evil. And I've got a contract with what I call the man upstairs, and so far he's kept his part. Yes, it is a he, and I'm just joking, right? But I call him the man upstairs, and the agreement I have is I will do today's work. I'll do everything I can to be honest and honorable and help people if you look after me and my family. If I make any money from it in an excessive way, great. But that's not why we do this. And so far, he's kept his side of the deal, and I've kept mine.
So I asked that question, and it sounded kind of funny, but like recently, that plane went down in Brazil, right? And it had like, what, 9 or 8 oncologists, and apparently like the cure for cancer was on the plane. Allegedly, I don't know. Right.
Yeah, I've yet to meet an oncologist that actually is in the right realms of what causes cancer and how to quote unquote treat it. I reserve the right to be wrong on that if they were and they were decent, and that's what happened. But I've yet to find one.
Yeah, I've yet to meet anybody that can actually show me cancer existing in a natural environment and acting pathogenically.
Thomas Seyfried would be the only one I could name that is in the right area as an oncologist.
But as far as being, I am not, and nor have I ever been the slightest bit concerned about any sort of ramifications, simply because, at least for me, I think the biggest power that we all have in our holsters against them, the powers that shouldn't be, is simply to ignore them. They exist and need our attention, so that if they can get our attention, then they can create dependency. And there are so many people who are dependent, or they think that they're dependent upon them and their system. I don't think like that. I'm not trying to destroy their system. I ignore it all. And I would rather spend my time not trying to tear their system down, but build new systems and build a better way forward. So I think that the people that get whacked are the people who are trying to trying to they're I mean it's again, Jeremy brought up the term bullying. They're bullies. And so what's the best what did our grandparents always teach us? The best way to, there's really only two ways to deal with the bully, and that's to out bully them. That's to beat them down, which I have no interest in doing, or just ignore them. Because bullies operate on they need the reaction, they need the attention. Because behind every bully is a narcissist, and or a very broken narcissist. And so I don't know. I'm not trying to mess with their systems. I've never gotten any prizes from those people. I never got my Bush prize, my Obama prize, my Clinton prize, my Trump prize, my Biden prize. Never got any prizes from any of those people. None of those, I've never met those people. None of those people have ever affected my life in any way, shape, or form. Because, like Jeremy said, I used to have, pre-2020, I used to have the utmost tolerance for all religions. Then 2020 happened, and the religion of statism played its ugly hand more aggressively than it ever has. And at this point, I just that religion and the followers of those religions, of that religion, and their heroes and their demons, and we are about to go into a whole new season of America's Next Top Zionist, and we'll see who wins that season. Gee, I wonder who that's going to be. All that shit depends on our attention, and again, I go back to my original statement. The most powerful thing that we have in our tool belt is the power to ignore them. We don't, if you really think about it, and we can get into this, we can get into the specifics of this if you want, but we don't need them at all for anything. And
can I add on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with John. To ignore them where possible, and everything we do is focusing energy towards truth and sharing and helping and that sort of thing. But I think the real key, and I don't know whether you'll agree, Daniel, or your audience, but every metric we look at since COVID, and maybe we can talk about why we call it COVID if anyone listening hasn't worked that out for themselves yet. Every metric we can look in the real world metrics, and people talking to us, and even a message I got today from my other partner that I work with at Naturally Better, from a local hospital where the doctors are now openly admitting to people that come in with heart attacks that they know it's being caused by the jib jab, which is huge shift in 2 or 3 years. But every metric we can look at, real and etheric, meaning just that feeling, that knowing, we're in the middle of the Great Awakening. And so there is a saying, no army can defeat a thought or an idea whose time has come, or words to the effect. And there is, what John and I and Naturally Better and the Red Pill Revolution book were about is not I'm right, you're wrong, right? Even though that might be the case frequently, it is about everybody needs to be able to have a conversation, present their information, and go, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Now, COVID, the most dangerous thing it did, other than what we know of, is it attempted for the first time in history to worldwide, and it was very successful initially, to shut down any dissenter, and well, not they were dissenters, but anybody who happened to want to express different opinion, factual or not, and not only to shut them back down, but to demonize them and shame them and cancel them. Now, if ever there was a red flag that something's not right, that should be it. Because if you're confident that what you're doing, because a lot of these people probably believe what they're doing. I know the doctors do, but for example, but if you're confident in what you're doing, and you're not nefarious and with intention knowingly doing wrong, right? You ought to encourage a conversation from a dissenter or someone with a different opinion. And certainly you should encourage the environment to be able to ask, even if they're wrong. And so that's really where we're at. We're in this Great Awakening, and it can't be stopped. And bearing in mind that there has been more death than ever before since World War II, since these jib jabs, and that's their data. If you look at it as a metric, those that took the jib jab and have died, and it's unarguable now the causes of it, their numbers coming down, and those that survived it are like, I ain't doing that again, and are going through their own awakening. And those that have witnessed loved ones die and know it's the jab have gone, oh my God, we were. So there's actually, if you look at it as a movement, I'm using my hands with one hand going down, one hand coming up for those who can't see this, their numbers of, shall we say, well, we've called them sheeple, but those that haven't seen the deceased are dropping massively, and the ones that are waking up is increasing. So the actual movement is very, very positive for humanity. Why humanity? Because when you quote unquote wake up, not that we really like that term, it's more accurate to say start critically thinking and be willing to be wrong, that you might have been wrong over things. When you start to think like that, miracles can happen. You start to always end up, whatever you start looking at, whether it be COVID or 9/11 or whatever it is, once you've seen enough factual evidence that at least they're lying about the narrative, and I'm sure you know this, you end up looking at every bloody quote unquote conspiracy or rabbit hole. It's unavoidable, because if they lied about that to your intellectual satisfaction, what makes you think they've been telling the truth about anything else? So
they're
I
lying
think
about
it's
everything.
a very, very exciting time for humanity.
And never forget, the universal truth that the only one that ever benefits from censorship is the one doing the censoring.
Well, and I think they did a really good job of censoring. And even now, like, you can still, like, you post something on social media, if it doesn't say the right thing about COVID, then they take it down, right? Sorry.
But you know what's interesting about that, Danielle, that whole the platforms and the rules of the different platforms. Let's, for a minute, let's just apply that behavior to any other scenario in life. Like, let's just say we all walk into a restaurant together and we sit down at that restaurant. And as we're sitting there at the restaurant having a conversation, the manager comes over and says, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to have a conversation about that particular topic in this restaurant. Just that alone, would you and the manager asks us to stop talking about whatever. We could be talking about yogurt or whatever. We don't allow discussions about yogurt in this restaurant, whatever the topic is. We would never go back to that restaurant.
No, honestly, I would get up and leave. I'd be like, okay, can I pay my bill right now? Like, I'm gone.
Without hesitation, we would be, it'd be
right.
a done deal. But yet, when people are sitting in the restaurant of Facebook or the restaurant of whatever the hell Twitter's called this week, or YouTube, or any of those corporate monstrosities, and you're sitting in those restaurants, and they're not only telling you what you can't say, they're telling you what you can't eat, they're telling you how you can breathe, how you can't breathe, what you can, I mean, like, why put up? Nobody needs Facebook. Nobody. YouTube, there are about 25 other alternatives to YouTube. There are about 50 other alternatives to Facebook, and none of which we need any of that stuff. But if you're trying to grow a business or an audience, you do need a platform. But I don't know. Here's a novel thought. What about your own platform? I mean, build your own restaurant, and then inside that restaurant, you can talk about whatever you want. You can serve whatever you want. You can let your patrons do whatever you want them to do. So I'm still puzzled that here we are in 2024, and there's still a sizable amount of people who are taking this canceling off of these corporate platforms. First of all, like I still to this day hear people referring to their Facebook feed as their feed or their page. It's like nothing on Facebook belongs to anybody but Facebook. Anyone that's had an account on Facebook, in the very process of signing up for that account, the fine print that nobody ever reads, you've already said anything I do on this platform is your property, Facebook. So I don't know. I really, really, really hope that more and more people start building their own platforms and stop being dependent. When the restaurant manager comes over and tells you what you can and can't do inside their restaurant and it's ridiculous, get up and leave.
Yep.
And then that restaurant goes out of business, and you know what? No more restaurant to worry about or bitch about.
Did you guys see a huge shift from like tradition? I'm going to call it traditional because I feel like natural medicine is not traditional, right? Even though it is, but it's not anymore. So like from Western
I like
medicine.
to put the word true medicine, true doctor,
Okay.
true philosophy. That's what I like, because it just resonates. Natural, with the best intentions, a lot of people are practicing natural medicine, but with the philosophy of an allopathic doctor, which is symptom based.
And even
but anyway,
term,
I interrupt you, Danielle.
And even that term traditional, and I saw you struggle with that term, Danielle, is like, let's not ever forget that what we're calling traditional, Western medicine is not even 100 years old.
Right.
I mean, it's a fairly new, gift that.
So our current medical
thrust upon
situation, I feel like it's not even
monopoly.
Like, what else do you call it, right? So,
it's
but
a monopoly.
Like with COVID, did you guys see that shift back to like true natural medicine, back to like what you all are doing, or have you seen it like still kind of struggle, and kind of like why are people so against true natural medicine versus like take this pill and make yourself better?
It's 100% conditioning and social engineering, and what I saw, and Jeremy will most certainly have a different take on this, but what I saw was, once again, had a very wise person years and years ago suggest to me that I start looking at things through the lenses of the power of thirds. And the concept is, you can take a room of 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever. The number doesn't matter. Let's just say 100 people. And you say, just tell them to do anything. Eat this cookie. You're going to have a third of those people that will eat that cookie, no questions asked, and they'll just eat it. You're going to have a third of the people who aren't going to eat that cookie just because they might even want the cookie, but just because you told them to eat it, they're not going to eat it. And then you're going to have that middle third that doesn't quite know what to do. And I think that it's helped me a lot to watch the world around me through those lenses, because that 1/3, and during the whole COVID thing, there was a third of the people who were going to do, whether it was injecting themselves with MAGA jabs and Brandon boosters, or it could have been. They could have been told to stick a fork in their left eye, and they would have done it no matter what. And then there was that third, and this is the third that I definitely exist in, that isn't going to do it just because you told them to do it, But that middle third, and this is where I saw the change, that middle third, which is malleable, the majority of that middle third was looking at the two sides and going, something doesn't feel right over there on the jabby COVID side of things. It just doesn't feel right. And it didn't feel right, because if there ever was, when there are really problems, like if there is a real problem that's really affecting a lot of people, you don't need to be told, let alone forced into the solution. Like if you were sick, truly sick, and there was this thing that would make you feel better, regardless of what that thing was, and you'd see it, you'd see people around you going, I was sick, and then I did this thing, and it made me feel better. That's all you need. You don't need to be forced. You don't need to be mandated. Solutions, it's human nature to try and find the solution. Okay, so I saw more people's eyes open up and be more skeptical than ever. I think that was the blessing of the COVID era. It showed us all. I mean, people were literally wearing it on their faces, what team that they were on. And so it showed us all who was who. And that middle third, I think that middle third woke up, or at least a spark of healthy skepticism was sparked in that middle third. And I think that has just continued to grow, because, as Jeremy pointed out, statistically, you can't, I would love to discuss, have a good, honest, honorable discussion with someone who still at this point believes that there is this invisible to the human eye, unable to be proven through scientific, biological, or natural methods, this boogeyman thing that exists, that they got to keep injecting themselves with mystery chemicals to save themselves from. I know
They won't
that
have a conversation with you.
they won't, because they're that 1/3, and like I said, they're gonna stick the fork in their eye and eat the cookie just because they were told to do it. But I'd love to get inside the mind of one of those people, and at this point here in the, as we sit here in 2024 and go, I'd love to hear the reasoning. Just explain the reasoning why. Because and I would bet that 99% of those answers would be based in fear. They're just afraid, and unfortunately, fear is a great motivator, and it drives a lot of people to do a lot of things.
That's true. That's true.
If I can add to that, I have a friend that studied the military and so what you might call traditional revolutions, ones of violence, which none of us want or promote. That's why we wrote the Red Pill Revolution, because it's a revolution of consciousness and of critical thinking. But our friend studied traditional revolutions, and he told me that historically, for a revolution to happen, it took 10% of the population to come together and act. And then the vast majority, and it will always be this way, just go with them. And whatever new regime or leader or ideology comes in, they're now, they're batting for that team, and they just accept it and move on. Well, I would strongly suggest that pre-COVID, or COVID as we call it accurately, pre-COVID, we were probably already in the 10-15% worldwide of people have really woken up and know that our governments are not working for us or with us, but against us. And certainly the globalists, to be nice to them, and because we could call them other names like parasites and psychopaths, but the globalists certainly are not benevolent driven. They're profit, rape and pillage in a corporate way driven. But since COVID, and we did 28 broadcasts to do with COVID, of which particularly me and Graham Norbury and John were bang on in the first two of, in March 2020, probably ahead of most people around the world, saying what it is, what it wasn't, what they're going to do, and what it's going to be. And we've proven to be right and factually right. But in the beginning, the doctors and nurses, I would say 90% believed it. I can categorically tell you, most of them, and I mean most of them, absolutely know it was not a pandemic. Many of them know that the virus has never actually been isolated other than a computer model, but they certainly know the jib jabs are causing the problems that they're now enjoying. And so when I did that sliding scale, the awakening is probably way past 20, 25, 30% worldwide at some level or another. And that's why I'm just so optimistic for the future, because no matter what, no matter what team you're batting for in America right now, and whether some of those players are good or bad or indifferent, I think the cat's out the bag. And I don't believe or I should rephrase it. I believe we're in a time that if you've pulled the wool over patriots, let's call them that, patriots' eyes, or the awake, or the conspiracy theorists, or critical thinkers, whatever you want to call it, if you happen to pull it over all over their eyes, it's not going to last for much longer. There's such an energy that's positive brewing, and that energy wants truth. It wants honor. It wants common sense. It wants common values. Most people, I've traveled, lived in 6 countries, traveled extensively. Most people just want to be left the fuck alone. Yep. They just want a family. They want to work. They want to eat. They want to make love. They want to, they want to have fun, and they just want to be left the fuck alone. And that was their mistake, right? They wouldn't stop leaving us alone. And I'm telling you, because you asked me, am I scared? No, because their time is over. We are going to build back better, but without them. And they know it. And any fear anyone's feeling right now, it's their fear because it's over. And it's not about, what if I get Nobel? We won't, I'm sure of it, right? But you can't stop what's coming. You just can't.
And I think you can see it, like at least here in the States, where we love our yard signs, and as I mentioned, we're like 80 days or so away from the next episode of America's Next Top Zionist. The Church of Red and Blue, usually, like you see it, like because the followers, the people that play that game, they love to display, which side of the church they're sitting on, the red side or the blue side. And like I've driven around my area, which has traditionally been a pretty enthusiastic. They're in the past, it's been a very enthusiastic area of people who like to play that game, and I don't see any yard signs up at all.
I haven't seen very many either. Actually,
no,
now that you say that,
I've got yard signs out, but they say presidents are temporary, Wu-Tang is forever. But anyways, but that's who I'm voting for. Anyway,
You're such a rock star.
But seriously, I would whoever's listening right now, I can guarantee if you look around, you don't see those signs either. There might be little, isolated areas where, some people are hyped up about one person or the other, but in mass, you don't see. I predict that this particular selection, let's call it what it is, will have the least amount of participation from the general public of any selection, any past selection, and they know it. I mean, you can see, I barely spend any time on garbage social media, but I have to because we've got business accounts tied to some of these things, and I've got to check messages. And every single time I log on to any of these garbage platforms, I am hit with red and blue ads asking me to donate money, like desperate ads to donate money. And it's like, you've got to be, imagine the gall of any of those sons of bitches. I don't care if it's Trump or Harris or any. Imagine any of those motherfuckers looking in the camera going, "We need you to send us some money." It's like that's like that. Talk about an abusive relationship. That is like the worst ex-boyfriend or girlfriend that anybody's ever had, coming back and going, "Hey, look, this time I really need you to get back together with me."
It'll be different. It'll be different.
Come on. It's like, get the fuck out of here. But no, I predict the lowest participation rate ever. And I do think that Jeremy's right. It's over. We're watching celebrity, the whole celebrity culture just crumble. I mean, celebrities, you used to want to be a celebrity, and now celebrities are like the most pathetic, laughable freaks that are out there. And it's like celebrities crumbling, the financial systems are crumbling, all of their systems. We are, I mean, if you could see the smile on both of Jeremy and I's faces, it's kind of fun watching this. This is everything I've ever as a lifelong punk rocker. This is everything I've
because
ever,
it was built on lies and bullies, and the foundations were sand.
Yeah.
And that's why they have to fail and will fail.
But the beauty is the crumbling is going to be uncomfortable for lots of people, and unfortunately that's just the way it is. Change is hard. How many people have we watched go through divorces? It's ugly, it's painful, but on the other side of that divorce, there's usually happiness and calmness. And so I think worldwide we're watching the divorce of the unhealthy, abusive relationship that a lot of people have been in, and as that all crumbles, on the other side of that will be nothing but whatever we choose to make of it. And again, it's hard getting out of an abusive relationship. It's downright ugly sometimes, but you have to do it in order to be happy. And so
absolutely.
So that's I'm excited about where we're heading.
I'm gonna ask a question that's off topic. I mean, it's on topic, but it's off this topic.
Yeah.
So I have recently been dealing with some weird like issues, like medical issues. And like I went to the doctor, said, "Hey, something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. Can you tell me?" And she was like, "Yeah. She told me I'm having ocular migraines." I was like, "All right, cool." She said, "Here, take this medicine." So here my question was like, okay, am I on this medicine for like the rest of my life, right? But also, I get home and as a critical thinker myself, I'm like, wait a second, whoa, because I didn't question it in the office. It took me like the entire hour drive home to get all the way back here to be like, wait a second, we're now dealing with the symptom, right? But like, what is causing my ocular migraines?
That's where I immediately when
Yeah.
you started saying that is like what you experienced is like someone walking into a garage going, "There's something wrong with my car," and the person going, "Oh yeah, you've got blah 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 blah. Here's a rental car," and you
Right.
drive off. They never fixed your car.
Right. So like,
Let me
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, let me start. I mean, there's never been a migraine I haven't been able to resolve ever. But let me start because I've normally said it earlier on. I realize I haven't said it. I acknowledge that quote unquote modern medicine, although it's the youngest medicine on the planet, has done some incredible things. And we describe that as the baby. And you know the term, the baby in the bathwater, don't throw the baby out there. Well, the bathwater is more like a swimming pool, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, but it's a beautiful baby, and the swimming pool's filthy. So a lot of that's got to go. But rather than, I mean, you should have a consultation with me, and you should most certainly,
I will.
because I'm
I'll
giving
call
you
you.
a complimentary membership, should come on our membership site because you'll learn exactly how to heal yourself. And if anyone else is listening, they can go to Naturally Better For You, spelled any way you want, and you could, or jeremyayres.com, and you'll find those details. But anyway, let's start with some fundamentals. First of all, I'm as a critical thinker, I'm kind of surprised that you've gone to a doctor because the first two letters mean drug dealer, right?
Right.
Because essentially that's what they've become. And
Well, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know
Sure.
that anything was even wrong with me, but I knew something was wrong
Sure.
with me, I guess. Obviously, I was
Right.
there.
It's, however, right? But the word diagnosis is actually made up of three words. Di equals two, ag is not, and gnosis means to know. So diagnosis literally means two people not knowing what the fuck is going on. But you get a label, right? And those labels are powerful. I mean, I'm serious. I made you laugh if people can't see you, but it's really serious because people write to me from all over the world all the time. I have. Right. And then whatever words after that. Now, when you put the word I and have, it's a very powerful thought pattern that goes into you. So I have cancer. I have autoimmune. I have this. I have that. Right. Now, if you take my wife, who, when I met her, was still terminally ill, having had the horrors of what are deemed modern medicine and modern oncology, surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, and was still terminal. When we took her case history, just some of the things we found which were primary causation was mercury fillings that were leaking, mercury vapor that she was breathing in and going into her breast, underarm deodorant. And where do you think underarm deodorant goes? Straight into the breast. She was drinking diet sodas, thinking at least she'd worked out sugar's bad for you, but aspartame is even worse. And then there were several other things, a lot of stress. She's from the Caribbean and was working in Canada in an office in front of screens all day, and we could go on and on and on. But those are the primary causes. So when you go in, so she didn't have cancer, she had mercury poisoning, aspartame poisoning, lots of stress and lots of deficiencies and lots of other things. 14 years on, she's thriving. So the first thing we would do with someone like you is start sitting down and going, okay, we'll take a case history. And a case history is all the way from when you were, mum was pregnant with you, all the way up to present day, looking at what you were eating, what stresses, were you vaccinated? Did you go on any medications? Most people that I take their case history, actually, people under 30, a lot of their problems start as a baby. They're very often not even vaginal birth, they're cesarean sections. I think actually, if I heard one of your podcasts correctly, you've just had a baby, or was I wrong?
I just
Was
had a
that
baby.
C-section, wasn't it?
I did, yeah, because he was
Because you
breech.
were researching JFK, if I'm impressing you enough by now.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So, a cesarean section is not how baby was designed to come through. Now you will sit there and obviously go, but I needed it. And I would argue the preparation for getting pregnant, let alone having a baby, should have been 2 years ago. Okay. But anyway, when you start taking a case history, you look often that the problems start as a baby. They weren't born vaginally, which mean they didn't have the microbiome come into the baby's mouth, which you get through the vaginal canal. So they start off with digestive problems. Then the mum can't breastfeed because she hasn't been shown how to breastfeed properly. And so it's painful and she stops. So the baby goes under formula, and so, which is mostly sugar, which means the microbiome change. So you see where I'm going already?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so by the time they're 10 or 20, they've normally got some chronic problems, eczema, asthma, headaches, allergy, whatever it is, right? And so they start taking drugs or antidepressants or all these things. So by the time I get to someone like you, we usually find that there is serious chronic poisoning, nutrient deficiencies, enormous misalignments. And if you've got migraines, you've got misalignments in your neck for sure. And the thumbnail sketch for migraines is high insulin, which is known as the metabolic syndrome. So you have high insulin, which isn't measured usually by the doctors. They just take your blood sugar, and you've normally got high inflammation and a lot of nutrient deficiencies going on.
Yeah.
Does that
I
make
don't-
sense just to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we didn't even talk about.
Well,
Right?
and I really
course you
want to
wouldn't.
stress. I really want to stress what the whole topic of diagnosis. Jeremy explained it so well, but I really want to stress this diagnosis. And I love that he broke that word down, because that is literally what it means. I think people hear the word diagnosis and they think, oh my gosh, that is, there's been this team of people that have studied what's wrong with me and come to this conclusion, and this is the situation I find myself in. Diagnosis is literally just a label. It's just a word or some words that get thrown at you. And I think anybody that's ever, words are powerful. And anyone that's ever been, as a child or even as an adult, anyone that's ever been called fat or ugly or stupid, you never shake that. Any little girl that's ever been called ugly or fat. I mean, my wife is beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. And she's never been fat. But as a child, she was probably a little chubby, but I mean, not something that you'd call fat, but she got called fat all the time. And to this day, she's still and she's a logical thinking human being, with rational thoughts and everything, but she still carries that, someone called her fat. So those words are heavy and they carry a ton of weight. And so when you get, just like you never really shed that, I got called fat, or I got called dumb, or I got called ugly. Imagine being told you have cancer. You have 4 years to live. I mean, that is, first of all, the audacity of another human being looking another human being in the eye and telling them something like that is, I wish I could bitch slap every medical professional that ever told someone that they had X number of time to live. What a fucking
It tells you nothing. Can I share two very quick stories?
Absolutely. Yes.
So one recent case, I've helped a lot of the Mexican community that are in Chicago. When I once helped non-verbal autistic child who now won't shut up, doing very well. And in fact, my wife's son,
I'm right here.
or stepson, yes, is autistic, or was autistic, and he's doing really well at 20 now. But anyway, one of the Mexicans brought the girl to see me virtually by Zoom, because I do Zoom consultation. Ill. She's about 11 years old, terrible lung condition, terrible coughing, really going downhill. And of course, they'd gone through the medical pathway and had every kind of scan and probe and test and diagnosis potentially attached to her. They were terrified. It was unbelievably stressful for 3 months. and she was only getting worse, which is frequently what I see.
Mhm.
And so, and I mean every scan and blood you can imagine.
I believe it.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. And one consultation, and once I'd done the consultation and they described the symptoms, which particularly were worse in the morning, so it suggests something at night's going on, I asked the mother, what does she wash the bedclothes and her pajamas or her nightie or whatever you want to call it in laundry detergent and softeners? And she said, yes, I've just started using softener, which is one of the primary causes for any kind of asthma or problem, because when you're at night, you're breathing in these chemicals. I mean, these adverts, freshness, come on, oh my God, people are stupid. But what really did it was in the last 3 months, she bought these plug-in, and I always love this, air fresheners, right? So these beautiful, smart plug-in air, again, come on, people. And it was that. And so I got her to wash her clothes in boiling water and bicarbonate soda twice, all her sheets, and to throw away the plug-in air fresheners and open the damn windows, change her diet slightly because she was very heavy on grain, which is always not good. And I think it took 3 weeks for the girl to recover. Did you see the point? When you take a proper case history and you listen and you look for where did it begin, you usually can come up with the right reasons and causes. The other very quick story, because it was migraine related, when I was in New Zealand, because one of the places I lived in a rural community, and a woman sort of 18 miles away in the other village had heard about me. She had terrible migraines. And this is just one story. In her case, this is what was causing it. She came to see me, and I was told that she was a really nice woman. And indeed she was. She was absolutely lovely. And she told me, she was very lovely as I took her through the case history and described her migraines and la, la, la. And then we got to any trauma. I said, have you any trauma? And she said, well, yes. 5 years ago, my husband, who's a blacksmith, I think it's the same word in America, that shoes horses and does that thing. Is it called blacksmith in America?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, whatever it's called, but they make the shoes and shoe the horses, and the blacksmith over here. It's probably the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, he got kicked by a horse and flew about 10 meters or 20, 30 feet and got brain damage. Not enough that he couldn't function, but it changed him. He was no longer the same man. And this woman was a Christian, a devout Christian. And, it had changed her marriage. And I said to her in a very lovely way, I said, I think you're very angry about this. And she said in a very lovely way, she said, no, I'm not, because I'm Christian and I've come to accept it. And my husband is not who he was. But I said, well, I think you're very angry. And she said, no, in an even lovely voice, no, I'm not. And a third time I said, no, I think you're really angry. And then she shouted at the top of her voice, no, I'm fucking not. And then burst out crying and cried for several minutes. And she was hugely angry. It was doing her head in that God had allowed this to happen to the man she loved. And she was racked with guilt because she wished he had died, because it would have been better than getting this man who was not her husband anymore. And that was it. And once she let that out, I'm not saying that's true in every case we help, but in her case, she never had a migraine again.
Well, it's amazing. Like, there's a book, I'm sure you've heard of it. The Body Holds the Score. Is that the name of the book?
Yeah, I haven't read it, but there's many good books. Body Code, Louise Hay stuff, they're all brilliant stuff.
Like where you literally hold your trauma in your body, and eventually it's gonna come out. However it does, that's what's gonna happen, right? So that makes a lot of sense, I think.
Trauma and inflammation are pretty much behind about every single condition that could possibly be wrong with the human being, and a lot of times the trauma is the cause of the inflammation.
I agree, and there's no scan on this planet that will find what a skilled and true doctor can discover in a detailed case history, which is really an investigative conversation to see of what poison. I mean, when I was in New Zealand, I had a 5-year-old brought to me with grown breasts. That wasn't trauma, although it was traumatic for her. It turned out she was in the drift of the spraying of hormones on certain crops,
Right.
right? So, it's an investigative thing. You won't find that in a scan. You have to listen to the human beings, and some cases are really complex and layered. And that's why they call it dis-ease. And what our membership site does at Naturally Better For You is we teach all of the things that I've learned in vlogs and Q&As. And I've written a protocol based on 30 years of my work that gets most people well. And if not, there's nuances and they need extra help. But there's reasons we get sick, and there's reasons why we can heal. And if you think about it, even if you don't accept what I'm saying, you just don't find lions, with autoimmunes or cat. You don't find wild animals with the diseases that man have. They're man-made. They're modern. They're poisons. We've been nutriently deprived of nutrients. We've been fed feed and not food. We've been chemically poisoned, heavy metal, and now nano poisons. And the worst scourge of our time is arguably EMF and artificial light exposure, something that you get lots of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have one last thing, I think, before we wrap this up. Can we talk about
We'll be
vaccines
happy to come
a little
back.
bit?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you can come back whenever, for sure. Please.
I'm joking.
Can we talk about vaccines? Because I
Sure.
know we talked about COVID, but like just the vaccine schedule for children, because I have 2 small children, so we're going through this right now, right?
Of course.
But the autism scale, the scale of how many people have autism now, and the amount is just going up and up and up. And out of all of my children, or my son's friends, he has like 3 friends. 2 of his 3 friends have autism or have been diagnosed with autism. Like,
Yes.
that seems odd to me, right? But it's so common now. So can we talk about that?
First of all, there's a wonderful documentary, you may have already seen it, called Vaxxed, that you should definitely seek out if you haven't, because it lays it out about as beautifully as it can be laid out. But I want to tee this up, and I know Jeremy will knock it out of the park. And this is going to ruffle someone's feathers out there.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But I mean this sincerely, and also half cockily. Prove me wrong. If you can, and it's simply this: viruses, forget COVID, any viruses. You could take 100 people who claim to be experts in the field of virology, and if you got them on a microscope all together in a room and said, show me what you think is a virus, even amongst those virologist, one guy's gonna go, there's a virus right there, and another guy's gonna go, no, it's not, that's a piece of dead protein. Another guy's gonna go, that's not a piece of dead protein, that's an exosome. They can't even agree on what a virus is. There is no consensus on what a virus is. It is a concept. Even the bastion of truth and knowledge, Wikipedia, will tell you it is a concept. That is the difference between germ theory and terrain theory. And there's a reason why the word theory is at the end of those terms, is because it's theoretical. Now, vaccines. The entire concept of a vaccine is reliant on viruses being real. So if we can't even decide whether, I'm not even talking about proving viruses are real, you can't get virologists to agree on what a virus actually is. So how can we even talk about vaccines? I mean, you literally, and I say this half jokingly, but if I was trying to sell you some Sasquatch repellent spray, and I was really pushing this hard, at some point you would say, John, why don't we prove that Sasquatches exist first before
Right.
Yeah, but they do.
decide that
They do. They do, though.
There's a mom joke in there that I'm not going to make, but anyways, no, I'm being silly, but
Right.
let's catch a Sasquatch and let's study Sasquatches first before we decide we need Sasquatch repellent spray. Sasquatches might not be something we want to repel. Maybe they don't need repelling. Maybe Sasquatches are even better cooks than Jeremy. Maybe we could put them to use. I don't know. But again, silly analogy, but the whole concept of vaccines is theoretical, not proven scientifically, naturally, biologically, or any other way. And if that is a theoretical concept, it stands to reason that would be viruses are still theoretical concepts, still yet to be proven scientifically, naturally, biologically, or any other way. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a weekend lecture. I just gave a 2-hour lecture at the live event, going through just a fraction of the evidence since the Spanish flu, which wasn't Spanish and wasn't a flu. And what John said is right. But I think what is more important at this end of a conversation, and John is right, and it might be shocking to people, and they might argue at this point that viruses have been identified. They haven't. The best virologist to listen to is Stefan Lanka, and of course every effort's been to silence him, as he's shown that virologists, his own profession, have never been able to actually isolate a virus and photograph it, measure it, and then the gold standard, put that into someone, and it cause predictable symptoms, which is what they do with bacteria, right? And then say that bacteria causes that symptoms, therefore that sort of thing. So it's never been done. It's all, and I know this is shocking to people, and I know they're going to bring up some studies, and we'll talk about that another day, because it was all done through the PCR test, which isn't a test. However, for this conversation, all viruses are computer models, all of them. They don't exist. Virus is Latin for poison, and that is accurate to this day. Now, this is where I want to say to you as a young mother, it's what I've said to every mother, okay? Because they go, oh, you're anti-vaccine. No, I'm anti-bullshit, I'm anti-bullying, and I'm anti-liars, right? Not anti-anything. That's right. You do whatever you want. But let's start getting to critical thinking, knowing what questions to ask. So let's start here. And this is what I start with mothers. What's in that vaccine?
And they won't let us ask that question. I mean, they let us ask to an extent.
Don't know. They don't know. And when you do find out what's in it, so I have a huge problem when you don't know what's in it. And if you don't, I don't understand why you don't. Okay. Number two, when you do find out the individual ingredients that are in vaccines in different combinations, I guarantee 100% you wouldn't put it in a baby's mouth, let alone their arm. I also guarantee no way does that make any logical sense how that could improve a young, immature immune system. And then when you start to get more critically thinking, how on earth have we survived this long as a species? We actually need, you're more bacteria than human cells. You need bacteria. If bacteria really cause disease, then all our dogs would be dead years ago, because they lick their asses, they don't wash their paws, and you give them a clean bone, they go and bury it in the garden until it's rank, and they dig it up and they eat it like candy. Animals know. There's a YouTube video, I think it's called Dying Elephant, or it was hugely viral, about a wounded elephant in Africa that died by a tree. I think it falls on a tree standing up, and then they film it for 5 days. And of course, it's Africa. The predators come in, take the main organs, because that's what they normally go for, by the third or fourth day, it's rotting and rank. And the animals are eating it like it's the best, sweetest thing, because animals know. The Asians know that bacteria is our friend. They ferment. Let's face it, Asians eat anything that moves, but they ferment everything. They have eggs a year old that fermented. And so when you start to critically think, right, about what actually grows a strong immune system, if the immune system is even what we have been told it is great nutrition. We're the only animal that doesn't know what the fuck to eat. I mean, you don't have a cow wandering around going, shit, that squirrel's looking tasty. It knows what to eat.
I can't
right?
catch it though.
It just does. We don't know what to eat, and that's
Maybe I'll
really
go eat some
important,
corn.
right?
Got
What is our natural diet, which I strongly suggest you is animal protein and fats, which, shock horror, have been demonized, and the World Health Organization is promoting a plant-based diet. I trust them. But anyway, what makes strong, healthy babies into strong, healthy children and strong, healthy adults? Nutrition, being outside, natural light, being raised with good morals, being raised how to think for themselves. It did America well for several hundred years. And I know the cynics will go, what about this disease? And that's why I said we need a whole weekend. Any true pandemic or disease you want to bring up, I guarantee you what you've been told is utterly fabricated for the reality of what caused and what actually cured or healed it. I can categorically tell you they manipulate data all the time to make it look like something like a vaccination eradicated a disease. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, we just lived through watching that happen in front of our eyes, the manipulation of data. So there's a lot of people out there that'll go, a lot of people default to polio. Well, what about polio? We literally, and Jeremy, I know you know this, but we could fill the next 2 hours walking you through the well-documented, this isn't just John and Jeremy saying this, well-documented history of what they're calling polio, and it was not a disease. It was
you won't find it using Google though, John, and that's the corporate beast tying in. You need to go and use the Russian search engine Yandex to find these well-documented documents now.
Or you have to be a physical media nerd like myself that keeps hard copies of everything. So nothing I have is electronic. I've got books, like original pressings and all that stuff. But back to the vaccine thing, Danielle, because this is such a topic that's so, like, I've got a huge soft spot in my non-vaccinated heart for this. It is you're those precious little babies. There is no need for them to be protected against computer models or Sasquatches at this time.
Right.
So I don't think that is and Jeremy said something very, very powerful. If you were to be lucky and crafty enough to end up with one of the package inserts on any of those injectable things that they want to put into newborn babies and see the ingredients, you would throw them back at the person in the white lab coat with letters after their name and go, on what insane premise would you possibly put this inside of a lovely little newborn baby? It's madness.
And you have to, I ask this question to everyone around the world, and bar one, I've always had the same answer. You're in America, right?
I am,
Danielle? Right. So in the last 50 years, is America healthier or sicker?
Sicker, for sure.
Everyone knows it, right?
Yep, everyone knows it.
Sicker. Right. So if you go back to the age-old journalistic philosophy of follow the money or who benefits, it starts to become pretty easy to see that even though your doctors and nurses may be genuinely lovely people, they've been educated by a very powerful monopoly, let's be kind, that is interested in creating more disease and more money and not see, a true doctor, is why I like to use the word true, should be getting you off medication, not that you can use the word medicine frequently, because medicine to most people is a positive thing. Medicine should nurture, nourish, or heal. If it doesn't nurture, nourish, or heal, for example, poison, ruin, or even kill, it's not medicine. And so we've just got to go back to really simple conversations with really simple, critical questions and get the truth. And I'm confident people will see that this is not protecting. It's certainly not healing. And what is good will stay and stand the test of time. And what isn't needs to be put in the annals of hell, a lot of it.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And if the person you're asking questions of gets irritated or doesn't have the ability. It is a beautiful quality in our fellow human beings to watch someone admit that they might be wrong or don't know. I love it when I ask somebody a question and they, like, without hesitation go, I don't know. That's honesty, you know, and that's what I want. And so if you're having conversations with these quote unquote medical professionals and you're asking questions and you don't hear an I don't know, or, you know, I mean, that would be a red flag to me, you know, because there's all sorts of things to be considered when you are properly diagnosing a problem, whether it's a problem with your car, with your house plumbing, with your electricity, or even more, your human body. And so if that person isn't you know, we've all had great mechanics or great contractors work on our stuff throughout life. And you know the good ones from the bad ones. And the good ones are the ones telling you what not to do. You know, my favorite mechanic was a guy that would tell me, you know, I would think I would need something. I think I need a new carburetor. And this guy would go, no, you don't. You need this. And it was usually something much simpler and much less expensive. That's like, you want to hear that and see that type of behavior out of these medical professionals.
That's really simply summed up, isn't it? People before profit.
Yeah.
Weird. That's so
no
strange. Why would you
profession.
think that?
It's crazy talk.
Right.
That's gonna get you murdered. Just kidding.
or you're definitely not going to get a job with Bezos or any Musk. Or
well, actually, you know what? You know, I understand why you laugh and make those comments, but when we embrace that sort of philosophy, again, I should say, there's plenty of money to be made. The world, we've got decades of healing and fixing systems to be done. But the other side of it is also you get to look yourself in the mirror again and be a good human being. And also, we're not meant to be working the level of hours we're working. We're meant to be enjoying life and doing other things and exploring creativity and spirituality and philosophy and whatever. So there's so much wealth waiting to be gained when we embrace old-fashioned philosophies that have worked for millennia, which is people before profit, that truth is something to fight for and honorable, even if you end up wrong yourself and have to change your opinion. And you know what? Having traveled and lived in other countries, that's most people. They really do want truth. They really do want family, and they really do want, you know, simple.
Yeah. I think people just want you to be who you are. Like, they don't want to be jerked around. So
you do you, I'll do me. And as long as we're not harming each other, then we should, in theory, be able to live in harmony with each other, you know?
Right.
And that's why I'm an anarchist. That's the beauty of the anarchist community. I've never met a community of people. In order to be an anarchist, you have to just believe one of two things. You believe in no masters, no slaves, which I think is a pretty common. I think we could all agree with that. If you disagree with that, you're into slavery, and have fun with that. And the other thing is the non-aggression principle. There is no reason for one human to be aggressive towards another human being unless you are defending your life or the life of someone else. And you know, I think there are far too many people walking around right now that feel that it's a God-given human right for them to not be offended, for them to not be triggered, for them to not be challenged, for them to not be questioned, for them to not be inconvenienced. None of those things are crimes. All of those things are just life, and far too many of us need to get the fuck over themselves and suck it up, Buttercup, and let's man.
If I can close on, I agree. If I can close on that. If there's any ism or ideology that we promote, and I do encourage, if you've enjoyed this conversation, to come over to naturallybetterforyou, spelled anyway.com, and join the membership and see. If you think we're quacks and mad, get out in 30 days, get your money back. But however, if there is any isms that we support, it's common sensism. It's just all those beautiful things that man used to strive for, and what work they kept, and what didn't work, they let it go until corporate psychopathic influences got in the way. And that's what we're about. So anyway, thank you very much.
Absolutely,
for having us on, Danielle.
Really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm gonna, in the show notes, the redpillrevolution.com is gonna be linked, and also naturallybetterforyou.com will be linked. That way, anybody that's listening that wants to check out the book, that wants to go check out membership, which I highly suggest, they can just click on it, make it super, super easy for them.
Yep.
And I would love to have you guys back whenever, because this was great. And
thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
Say the word and we can continue this. There's probably about 25 hours of additional conversation we can have on any given topic.
I feel like we hit a lot of different things, but we couldn't like get really in the weeds of like any one topic just because of how much we wanted to cover. So
that's exactly why we did a membership site, because it's just, there's so much with facts and links and evidence to show people, but the foundation and the philosophy is simple.
Yeah.
And there's some amazing free downloads that we're not even, I'm not collecting emails or anything. We're not trying to sell you anything. If you go to naturallybetterforyou.com, there's a couple of free downloads. Just scroll down to the middle of the page and just grab those, because one of them is this anti-dependency guide, and it's just chock full of ways that you can just take more control over your life. And we put it together. I would like I would challenge even the most knowledgeable skeptic out there is still going to flip through this guide, and there's going to be a few things in there that makes them go, oh, I didn't know that. So it's full of like useful, actionable knowledge that any of us can apply to our lives, and just that will allow us to go in a more healthy, sovereign, self-governed direction. And there's also another download on there called Have You Been Shot? And it's a post-vaccination detox protocol. And there's some very helpful information in there too for any number of people who might be in various stages of regretting the decision that they made previously.
That's really helpful.
Oh, you can keep your downloads. I want your money. Come and join the membership because it's so bloody good. If you don't like it, binge watch it and then get your money back after 30 days and exit with the middle finger.
I love it.
Danielle.
Thank you guys so much. Until next week, my friends, stay skeptical and we'll see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's @rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Valaha, for our awesome intro.